Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book stores got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Pizza people, welcome back. We've got a super exciting deck for you today. We're actually going to be taking a 5-color deck that got top 4 in our latest event this past Sunday on August 7th. It was the Slice of Standard event. My name's Hollywoodpizza, and we're going to go over this deck. So to start with, essentially the deck is built around a couple of big powerful cards. The first one being Asika, God of the Tree, but that's not necessarily the side that we care the most about. It's going to be the flip side, the Prismatic Bridge. So Prismatic Bridge is one of each color. That's Wooburg. Legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. And then you can put that card on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom in a random order. So essentially, you're trying to get the bridge down to hit the only creature that you have in a deck, which is our very, very powerful Titan of Industry. One of the best top-end cards in the format here. On top of that, we're actually trying to go over the top as well with Kami War. What better card to play in a 5-color deck than essentially like a 3-for-1 or more? So the first part of the saga lets you exile any target non-land permanent that an opponent controls. The second part actually lets you bounce any non-land permanent, so you can bounce something that you already have in play back to your hand. And then on top of that, your opponent has to discard a card, and then finally it flips over into a 6/6 flying trample that whenever it attacks defending a player gets to choose a non-land card in your graveyard. They put it back in your hand. This card gets plus X, where X is the mana value, and you just beat down even faster. So to help kind of get to our big Titan Industry, which can also be a creature engine as well, we have some of our glue cards, as you will, to kind of help bridge the gap from the early to mid to late game. So to start off here, we have an Azusa's Many Journeys. This is just a one of. It's kind of like a flex spot. It can be any card that you really want it to be. If anything, you could almost turn it into maybe more board wipes or more of like an earlier pinpoint target removal spell would be pretty decent. But essentially, this lets you play an additional land every turn. Speaking of lands, we're running about 30 mana sources here, including the Shadow Skull Smashing. So the Azusa's lets you get to play an extra land early to help you ramp into your later spells. Courier's Briefcase here as well. Not only does it make a 1/1 creature when it enters the battlefield that you can use to block, it also makes sure that you're getting to your 4s and 5s by making a treasure. The briefcase itself, being able to sacrifice it for mana. On top of that, later as the game progresses, if you draw these kind of a little bit late, you're able to draw 3 cards just for the Wooburg, that 5 mana, one of each color. Even though this is in the 2-drop slot, this isn't necessarily like a 2-drop you're going to be playing most of the time. It's going to be a land, or you can use it later in the game to deal a big amount of damage divided as you want among 2 permanents that are creatures or planeswalkers. So Shadow Skull Smashing, always really good. It actually does really, really good in this deck as well. Sometimes you can end up with a ton of mana and kind of start to run out of gas. So being able to have these additional like modal-faced cards is just really, really useful. In our 3-drop slot, of course, any red deck, any deck having red in it's going to be playing Fable the Mirror Breaker. You already know what it does. You get a 2/2 Goblin that makes a treasure when it attacks on the first one. You can discard up to 2 cards and redraw that many cards. And then on the flip side, you essentially get a 2/2 that for 1 and a tap, you get to make a copy of any non-legendary creature. And then you have to sack it at the beginning of the next end step. So just a very, very powerful card if you haven't already seen it in Standard. We have the 2 Asikas as well. Like I stated earlier, the Prismatic Bridge side. On the front side of Asika, though, it has Vigilance. It can also ramp you a little bit. Most of the time, if you're playing the front half of it, you're kind of just trying to have it out as a blocker or to try to ramp you to one of your other bigger spells. Speaking of ramping, we've got 2 Celestas here. Even though it's a legendary artifact, it's actually pretty useful in helping get you to later in the game. And on top of that, it can also be somewhat of a filter engine and a little bit of that life gain as well on top. In our 4-drop slot, we actually only have 4 Binding of the Old God. This is still a phenomenal card as it can destroy any non-land permanent that an opponent controls. And then later on in the second part of it, it can get you a forest tap to kind of help ramp you a little bit, fix your mana. And then if need be, you know, gives your creatures death touch. It's not necessarily something that comes up a lot, but it's considering you have burn down the houses to make some devils, or maybe even the Titan Industry has trample, the death touch can sometimes be a little bit useful. In our 5-drop slot, we already talked about Burn Down the House, which it can essentially be a board wipe or a threat with those 3/1/1 devils. We have Spirit Sister's Call, which is a spicy one of here. At the beginning of your end step, you get to choose target permanent card from your graveyard. Then you can sack a permanent that shares a card type with it. If you do, return the chosen card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains if it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead for 3, a white and a black. So essentially this helps you kind of get a nice little chain going where you can kind of sacrifice like the token from this to get back a Titan if it's died. You can sacrifice your Azusas or maybe even the binding itself to kind of get back a Kami War. So Spirit Scissors can definitely be a bit of a grinding card in specific matchups. You might almost want another one in the sideboard because it is that good in the matchups that you're going to want it for. I actually have 4 Battle of Frost and Fire, which is actually pretty interesting here, but the fact that it's almost always going to be a board wipe, and then it gives you a scry, and then on top of that, you can potentially start to draw some cards off of it on that third part of the saga is phenomenal. And it also helps with the Spirit of Sisters card, where sometimes you'll get the Battle of Frost and Fire countered, but then you can just sacrifice either the Spirit Sisters or just another enchantment that you have laying around to get back that Battle of Frost and Fire, which is just phenomenal. And like I said earlier, our top end, we have the Kami's War and our Titan Industry, which, you know, 7 mana, 7/7 reach trample. When it comes into play, you get to choose 2, destroy an artifact or enchantment, gain 5, 4/4 Rhino, or a shield counter on a creature. Essentially, the shield counter protects your creature from any damage or direct destroy effect, blocks, anything like that. And then that shield counter will fall off. So overall, just a really strong, grindy, mid-range to over-the-top main deck. For special lands, we have 1 Aggro to kind of help kill some things in the way or act as a additional white source. 2 Lair of the Hydras, acting as an additional green source or potentially just getting into a huge creature. You can also use the creature to block as well. We also have some, comes into play tapped Triomes, if you will, with the Rafine's Tower, the Xander's Lounge, couple Zeatoras, a Jetmir, 2 Spar's Headquarters to help fix your mana base. And you can also search for them with the Binding of the Old God in that second chapter as well. Our sideboard here consists of 2 Ray of Enfeeblements for any deck running white, like these Hinata decks, or potentially like a white aggressive strategy. 3 Disdainful Strokes for any deck that might be playing some bigger spells, or just trying to finish the game by trying to go over the top of you. We also have 2 Infernal Grafts to help kill any creature that could end up being a problem or just anything that's in the way. We have a Coma to kind of help give us an additional big threat, depending on the matchup, to help get off of the Prismatic Bridge side. We have 2 Tamiyo Safekeepings that also can help protect our Titans, our Fables, even the Prismatic Bridge, because Tamiyo Safekeeping does save permanent. So you can give anything hexproof and indestructible to help protect it. 2 Unlicensed Hearse, just a very strong card in every single format that it's legal in so far. You can get rid of a couple cards from a singular graveyard, and that's just pretty much very useful against like Tenacious Underdogs, things like that. We also have 1 Unleash the Inferno, just a great additional removal spells that kind of help kill something big or potentially kill something small and then get rid of a Fable that's on the opposing side. And to help round out the sideboard, we've got 2 Meathook Massacres. Of course, Meathook just a phenomenal board wipe overall when you're able to get it off on some of these smaller creature decks. And then later in the game, it can also help you kill multiple 4/4s or 5/5s if it really gets to that point, all the while gaining life and draining your opponent as well. So overall, I had a blast playing this deck. I think that there's actually a lot of game to this deck, considering that our great friend CeeLo Rockin was actually able to get into the top 4, and it looked like they got into their ease. Their only loss ended up being in the top 4 to a Grixis Rogue Vampire deck that actually took down the whole event. So yeah, I think this deck's great. Take it to a tournament, take it on the ladder, and let's jump right into some games. Jumping into some games here with some 5-color Kami War. See if we can get the bridge down, get some Titans going. That's a little bit of a loose hand here. It is great being on the play, though. I think we're going to have to take the mulligan. This is, I want to say it's slightly better just because we have the Esika to play. I don't necessarily want to just like mulligan this hand. We're missing the white mana, but we can find that somewhere. Especially considering the Esika can also tap for it if need be. And let's go and lead off with this, just to have all of our lands come into play untapped, which feels pretty good. And Bloodtithe Harvester is fine. Okay, I think we do actually have to cast the Esika, which is a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. It ramps us a bit. They do need another blood token to essentially end up killing this Esika. And yeah, they're just getting some permanents down. Got the Oni Cult, the Epicure down as well. So we did lose the Asika, unfortunately, but we're going to go for Celestis here, which is pretty fantastic, I think. And that actually gets us really close to this Kami War on the following turn. And then we might be able to get that going. Obviously, you know, once it gets to the creature side, there's a chance it could just die, but right now our opponent's mostly just trying to get their engine going, and then we'll go ahead and see what happens. They don't really have too many, like, huge threats. So let's go ahead and see if our game plan of overpowering them with our bigger mid-range cards ends up working out. 2 Anvils is a bit of a problem, though, considering that we're just going to get a little bit overrun here, but we're going to get to exile one of them and then just get to bounce potentially the other one to have to make them recast it if need be. Kind of just make them spend their mana a bit. Going to go down to 15. And we hit a second Kami War, which is actually really fantastic here. I think we just play this on white. We'll play the Kami War here, exiling one of the Oni Cults. So we're going to be able to get rid of both of them eventually because we have the second Kami War. Okay, going to take that point of damage from it. So we are going to get a bit dangerously low here, but still have a chance here. Their deck is like aggressive because of the fact that they had 2 Oni Cults, so they were able to get a lot more tokens down. Okay, here comes the Synthesizer. And they just hit a land, so they have 2 cards left. Really hoping that they're not anything too crazy here. Okay, gonna sack the Synthesizer to redraw again. That's pretty good, but I believe they just get to cast it for this turn, so they can't just kill our... Or they can't save it to kill the Okagachi when it flips over. Gonna go down to 9, so still getting to a dangerous point of the game. Kara's Briefcase is actually really good here. We're gonna exile one of the tokens. Let's see, so we can play this as a black source. I believe we do have to play the Courier's Briefcase first. And then we'll be able to get the Kami War down. Fortunately, sacking the Briefcase. Would rather have kept it to draw some cards, considering we're kind of empty-handed. But at the same time, once this flips over to Okagachi, then we'll actually be able to start getting some cards back from the graveyard to recast. And one of them might end up being a bridge, so... You know, Titan Industries looking pretty close here. It's going to be nice to potentially get rid of one of these tokens, so... Okay, they didn't have the removal spell, so... no creature land is nice, but we are going to go down to 5 life here. A bit dangerous. Let's see what they drew. They're going to crack with the blood, it looks like. Okay, going to get rid of, yep, a land. And they hit another land, so that's good. We'll get to gain a life. We'll decline on this. Okay. We'll get to bounce a token. We'll get a 6/6. Could also activate the Celestis to gain a point of life and redraw. I think we do want to do that. Wow, yep, and we hit a binding, which is great. And we'll pass a turn back. I think we still want to do this just to gain some life. Titan Industry, I think we just want to keep that. We can cast it next turn off of the Celestis. Now we're at 8. So it's looking pretty likely that we kind of have this game in the bag, and we do. Next turn we have the Titan Industry, so even if they hit another Anvil, we're just going to get to blow it up and gain some life on top of that. So that felt pretty good there near the end. Unleash Inferno is pretty good, mostly because it gets rid of some of their problematic permanents. At the same time, it is a 4-mana card. I do like the Meathook here, considering that they're probably not going to be able to do that back to us. So that feels pretty good. Let's cut this Azusa's. Spirit Sisters is fine because of the long game. Can also kind of discard some of our bigger cards earlier in the game if we hit like a Fable. Let's take a look here. I think we still want the Unleash to the Inferno. There's almost a chance that we don't want like the safekeeping, but I'm not really seeing a real reason for it. I mean, if they kill one of our Okagachis, we still have so many ways of getting them back. So on and so forth. I could see it for like the life gain and some protection. Let's get rid of a Celestis because we're going to be on the draw. I think the Courier's Briefcase is fine. Let's cut one of the Smashings, and I think we run it back like this. Let's just take a look one more time. The Hearse is decent because they are putting a lot of cards into the graveyard. Still think about the Tamios for the life gain in case it really gets that relevant. I think we just keep this, though, here and run it back like how it is. Got a bit of some sideboard cards in there, so let's go and see how we do game 2. And going to be on the draw. This hand's actually a little bit fine. We got a couple 3-drops we could play, and we have a Battle Frost and Fire to kind of help stabilize the game if it really gets out of control. Okay, Shadow Skull Smashing comes into play tapped. So we have a lot of our late game cards. We actually have all of our colors here as well. We just need any one more land to kind of help fill it. Ooh, check for traps. Might get rid of one of the Fables because it's an early play. So even though they're getting rid of one of our, value cards, it's not really like that relevant considering that our late game cards are what we really care about. Like those can easily overpower like what their strategy's trying to do, so missing some early plays is okay. And it looks like they're going to play a Synthesizer to potentially hit a land drop here. They do hit it, which is nice. And we're expecting like an Oni Cult here potentially. Nope, another check for traps. So it looks like that other Fable's going to go away. Or they get rid of the Meathook, considering Meathook can be kind of a swingy card here. We also just have a Battle Frost and Fire, so it might not be the Meathook because of how redundant this is. They could be looking at that Kami War like it's going to be the card that ends up killing them. I still think Fable's the correct choice just because it actually slows us down completely. And it looks like that is what they're going to go for here. Okay, we had a Haunted Ridge, which is great. Just gives us more mana, and the double black for the Meathook gives us that extra color to be able to add towards the Kami War. Okay, and they hit their own Fable, which is fine. Not really too worried about that. The best thing about playing against decks like these is that they don't necessarily play counter spells, so they might have some negates in the sideboard if they make a lot of treasures, but a lot of the time they don't play that version. Okay, so they just have a 2/2. Would rather have a white mana here somewhere. It's a shame that we don't. Kind of want to just like Meathook for 2 so they don't get the treasure. But I know that it's almost more value to hold on to it. Let's play this land that just comes into play tap no matter what and pass it back. Could also have like held up our mana to like activate the lair, but then the lair just really trades with the goblin. That's not really good considering we'll just be behind on mana. So them knowing that we just have board wipes kind of puts them in like this awkward situation where they don't really want to put more permanents onto the battlefield that are creatures. Okay, 4 cards left now. They did get a nice little loot effect there from the Fable. And it looks like the Anvil's going to come down. We do have the Kami War for that. And a second Anvil, so we don't have a second Kami War yet, but a bridge would mean that we'll be able to get some Titans going. Now, we did play the lair, so, no bridge yet. Going down to 18, they do get some treasures. So we're probably going to take a point of damage here, looks like, yep. So go ahead and get 2 tokens. And they have 1 card left. We hit Courier's Briefcase, which is actually pretty decent. So we get Courier's Briefcase plus the Meathook. That's not really like that crazy though. It would also use the Briefcase. Not really a fan of that play. Let's just go ahead and just do this for 3. May as well use all of our mana. So we're going to get to gain some life. We do take a point of damage here, but that's fine. Okay, they get the synthesizer sacrificed here. Making some tokens, making a samurai. We do have another battle, Frost and Fire, so it's not really that crazy. They're going to meat hook for 0, so essentially breaking even with our meat hook. Okay. Ooh, we hit a binding. I think we just kill everything. And then we can play a Ganjo, we can binding or Kami's War eventually, which feels pretty good. Yep, just going to sacrifice, so these are all kind of just breaking even. We are going to get to take, I guess, like the way the triggers happen, and we're going to take one more from the Oni cult, but it's not really like that crazy. Yeah, this isn't really doing anything. Go ahead and play that as a white source. Now we have Kami War next turn. Maybe even the binding plus the courier's briefcase, depending. I kind of like that too, just because it gets us our triple green towards a Titan if we top deck it. So maybe, like, I guess we are going to get to waste the Scrydo if we go towards the binding play, so maybe our Scry dictates what we end up doing. Burn That House, pretty good top deck here. So let's see what our Scry gives us. So we hit a Titan anyways. Yeah, so I actually think we just Kami War here, so we draw land. Let's see. Would we rather draw the Titan? We have to think about it, I guess, a little bit. Yeah, I think that's fine. We just play the Kami War now, then we binding next turn on the other Anvil. We're at 16. The most threatening card right now is going to be the creature land. The Hive of the Eye Tyrant, but I don't really think we're too worried about that. Okay, Deadly Dispute, sure. Gonna draw a couple cards. Okay, opponent stuff has 4 cards left, so they still got some gas in the tank here. We're not out of the woods yet. Look, looks like they are going to activate the creature land. We'll go ahead and take 3, go down to 13. All good and dandy. They can sacrifice the treasure token to get a creature. Okay, either way, they're actually going to play a creature off the treasure token. So they have some threats. They have some things going on. We're going to get to bounce the token. Okay, looks like they're just going to use that. That's fine. Not really all too worried about it. We'll go ahead and binding on the Onicol Anvil. We will play this as our 3rd green source. Get a briefcase down. And I think we'll just pass it back. At 12, which isn't the safest, but this Titan's going to be great next turn. Yep, going to activate their creature land. And come in for quite a bit of damage. And they actually even have a way of killing this. So we're going to take 7 here, go down to 5. Yep, here comes the 6. Excuse me, the 7, going down to 5. Okay, so we have Titan of Industry. And we also get the 6/6, which is great. I think we just want one of these. Let's play the Titan. We're going to gain some life. Destroy the meat hook massacre. Going back up to 10. We got our meat hook, so everything looks pretty dandy right now. Binding gives us Death Touch, which is actually pretty good with Trample for a turn. Especially if they're not able to get rid of our cards here. And they do have an Infernal Grasp, which kills the Okagachi, but that's fine. We still have a Titan Industry. We actually still have a lot going on. I mean, the more that they put on the board, the better this burn down the house gets. Need to watch out for that creature land. That was actually just a phenomenal top deck here. So let's see. We don't have any enchantments. It's fine. This is actually the enchantment, so we actually can sacrifice that to get the Kami War back. That actually feels pretty good. We can also burn down to make some tokens. I think we just do this. Sacrifice the meat hook to get back the Kami. Exiling the Fable. I think that seems pretty good. We're at 10 though. Kami War could also get rid of the Blood Tithe Harvester. That might end up being the safer play. Just to make sure that we don't just die to some random removal spell. No attacks, end the turn. We'll get back. Still get back the Kami War. Sacrificing the meat hook. Exiling the Blood Tithe Harvester. They can get some redraws. Like, yeah, that's rough, but I think I'd rather do that than potentially take a lot of damage. I think it's kind of like up in the air what we do there. We could have also like burned down the house, just gotten rid of all their creatures. They can't activate both of their creature lands yet, so the most we're taking is like upwards of 7 to 8 damage, I believe. Looks like they are going to go for it, though. Maybe they just come in for the 3. Get rid of one of our good cards in the graveyard so we can't get it back, is what it's looking like. Maybe they just get rid of the Battle of Frost and Fire because it's like one of the better ones. Binding does get rid of just anything in play, though. They still don't know about our burn down the house. Thinking of like what our best draws would be here. Yep, so they do get rid of that. I mean, we get the Kami War next, or let's see, we get the Battle of Frost and Fire either way next turn to wipe their board. That still seems pretty good. All they do have is this. Okay, check for traps. So there goes the burn down the house, but we'll get the Battle of Frost and Fire in there. We're at 7. We're really hoping for... we get to bounce the token. Yeah, that seems fine. Let's see here. So we have the battle and that. Could bounce that, but then they get another use. That's not good. Let's just get rid of this. Could redraw. Artifact. Still just 2 enchantments. Probably gonna have to sacrifice that. Let's get a redraw. I mean, if we hit a binding, it's gonna be pretty good. No binding, but we hit a battle and a Celestis. We have Shatter Skull Smashing, but we can't cast it. I think that we play this as a black source. Play the Celestis. Go to end step. Bring back the briefcase. Sacrifice the Celestis. We get another blocker. And we'll pass it. We still have 2 removal spells here. It's getting close. It's only game 2, so even if we do lose this game, we have a chance at another one. Kami War gets to flip next turn into a creature. Opponent might be looking for a concede here pretty soon, considering that I think we're in really good position. We've definitely turned the game around. So let's go and see what happens here. Okay, no attack, just going to pass back to us. So we got pretty fortunate there. They didn't have a removal spell. Now we draw another land. This is going to get to flip over. We have a Battle of Frost and Fire for their cards. We're mostly just going to Shatter Skull Smashing there, just because it's just 2 for 1, pretty clean. But yeah, able to take down that match pretty smoothly there. Anvil's pretty popular, but a lot of our cards can kind of just go over the top of what they're doing. They don't really have any clean answers for anything once we start to get like Titans or the Kami Wars down. So let's go and see how we do the rest of our matches. Getting in with some more 5-color nonsense. You love to see it. See if we can get some bridges, some Titans down. Just some of my most favorite cards right now in Standard. Unfortunately, this hand's a little bit weak. Luckily, we are on the draw to make up for this mulligan. Only one land in the form of Shatter Skull Smashing isn't really going to do it here. This hand's a lot better. Being on the draw means that the Fable's going to be a lot slower to come down, but at the same time, we still have a pretty decent hand. We can get rid of the... Let's see here. Guess if we get rid of the Haunted Ridge, it's not necessarily going to give us all of our colors because we do need green for that. So we're mostly missing blue, but our only blue card is Battle and the 5-color cards. Let's take a look here real quick. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and put the... Let's put the white land back, I think. Just because if we do end up having like a Battle of Frost and Fire, we're going to want to use that first. And it looks like we're actually up against runes here. And let's go and start off with this Haunted Ridge. So, I don't know if we're going to fare the same way, but the person that actually took this deck to the top 4 did have a pretty good match against runes. They were able to take it down, but it looks like our runes opponent is getting a pretty quick start here. And we drew a land. Unfortunately, I don't really think we have too much else going on. Let's play this as a green source and pass it back. We might almost want to play the Asika as a 1/4 to block here pretty soon. But it's looking pretty rough, honestly. We're just getting a little bit too behind. This deck definitely has some extremely powerful starts. Okay. Wow. Tatsunari. Okay. Interesting choice there. So double green for the Asika sounds about right. Could also Fable as a blocker. I think we just want to potentially block. Let's see, it can't be blocked this turn, so by creatures flying or reach. So we don't have any reach here. So either way, they might actually be able to just get this off. It's a very interesting deck from our opponent. I was definitely expecting the runes, but it looks like we're actually up against just Jund enchantments. Definitely a pretty spicy deck here, for sure. Okay, gonna get the counter on the token. We'll take some damage, go down to 6, and don't believe that there's really a way we can get out of this. We can just hope that our opponent doesn't have another way of pumping their cards. Could make a blocker. So that's actually Azusa's. Play this as a white source, get the Fable down. So we have a blocker. We get to gain some life. See if our opponent has it. Oh yeah, they can also just go wide with the Ranger class. Let's just see what our opponent does though. Okay, Weaver of Harmony, so... Yep, they're just going to get to pump everything. So either way, I think we were just dead in the water. Their opponent just had a really quick start. So we're mostly just hoping to ramp into maybe one of our board wipes here. Bring in the meat hooks. Brave Enfeeblement, not the best card here. I think we definitely want the Infernal Grasp. And potentially even the Unleash the Inferno, even though it can be kind of an expensive card. Spirit Sister is just a little bit slow in this matchup. We're not really trying to outvalue our opponents. Azusa's is okay. It could gain its life, but at the end of the day, it's just a one-of, and it's not really like that crazy relevant. We can cut a Celestus, a Shatter Skull, and let's just take a look at our list here. Maybe another Celestus. We do need the ramp, though, to potentially go over the top. So I actually think I'm okay just getting rid of a Smashing here. And trying this out. Let's go see what we can do here. Opponent is playing a bit of an aggressive deck, which could be one of the weaknesses for this deck overall, knowing that you have some games that you're just going to be a little bit slower. Now, a lot of Standard is mid-range, so you're going to have a lot better of a chance winning with this deck against that matchup. And it is a good thing that that is consisting of most of the meta. So, you know, I still think this deck's a great choice either way. I think that you just have to plan accordingly with whatever matchup you may be going up against. No red mana here is a bit disappointing. We are on the play. We have an Infernal Grasp. I actually think that's almost enough to keep this hand and the meat hook, just because we might be able to meat hook early. It's a bit risky, but I actually think we're just going to have to take the risk considering that we're playing against an aggressive deck, and we don't want to just go down some cards. One interactive spell might be enough to kind of just help glue a few turns into another. This is potentially just going to be a green source here as well. That way we can kind of get most of our colors flowing for this Kami War, or a bridge if we can get to that eventually. Okay, tap land here. So we do draw another land source. It's looking best to just play the swamp and pass the turn back. So luckily it looks like our opponent has a little bit more of a slower start this game. Could have another Rangers class here. Okay, Generous Visitor. And a Kumanos. So I think, yeah, we'll just go ahead and kill this Generous Visitor now. Kumanos is a bit frustrating because it's going to get to pump their next card up. But at the same time, we are going to get to play our Fable here, which is really, really nice. So we're starting to at least swing back some of the tempo in our direction. On top of that, if we need to, we can kind of suicide the Goblin by attacking next turn, getting some more treasures to get towards this Kami War, or maybe even the Titan Industry eventually. Okay, so they do have a Tatsunari, so that's going to be a 4/4. Definitely not a card that we can kill easily with the Kami War. I think it might be time to just get rid of this meat hook. And I'm almost inclined to just keep our lands, considering that we want to cast our cards. A Titan could also be discarded here. I think we kind of have to. Okay, we draw another Titan and a meat hook. Alright, so kind of just flipped the script a little bit there. I think we do swing. If our opponent blocks, we can just meat hook for 2. And it looks like they are just going to take that trade. And meat hook for 2 here actually seems pretty decent. We're getting rid of one of their threats on the battlefield. And then next turn we actually have this Kami War, so that's going to be fantastic. Get to play this as a green source, then we'll have 2 permanent green sources towards the Titan of Industry. Kumanos is going to get to hit us in the face here for a couple damage, but that's alright. And it looks like they're actually going to ninjutsu, so they're actually going to get to take one of the cards in our hand. So unfortunately, it looks like we might just be losing this Kami War that we were going to cast next turn. And they actually get to exile it from the game completely, so we're not going to get that back. And we're looking for some more green sources here to eventually get to this Titan Industry. They might end up killing the Reflection. Luckily, we're still at 15. It's not the craziest life total. And a go blank here is actually really, really good from our opponent, just getting rid of all of our cards now. So we're definitely in some top deck mode, looking for anything that's going to help us get over the top. And unfortunately, that land is not going to do it. We'll go ahead and pass it back. Not going to attack with the Reflection of Kiki Jiki here. Opponent just has lots of cards right now. They only have 3 lands. Could have drawn 1. We'll see if they did. Really hoping to just draw any of our cards that help us get over the top. Fortunately, it does look like the Reflection is going to get destroyed here. And they do have the Kumanos for extra damage. We're going to take another 1 plus 3 is going to put us down to 8. And we drew another land, so definitely not the card that we want to see here. Gonna have to just pass it back. So let's hope that our opponent does not have any more hasty threats. Unfortunately, this Kumanos is going to flip next turn, so right now it's really looking like Titan of Industry or bust. And we're actually going to take a pretty big hit here off of the life of Toshiro. So this is actually going to get us down to 3. They do have another Kumanos, so that'll put us down to 2. So it is looking like Titan or bust here. And Ziatoras gives us another draw. And a burn down the house. So burn down the house makes some tokens. They could kill a token. One of these flips. I think we have to do it though. Don't really think we have too much of a choice here. We'll go and pass it back. And it looks like our opponent might just have the game here, potentially with just like a burn spell. Yep, they're going to get to kill a token. And I don't think that it's really all that relevant. We'll go ahead and just deal a damage here. That's going to come into play. If they have just any other removal spell, we lose the game here. They have 4 cards in hand. Okay, yep. And they have Okiba, so we'll go down to 1. And they have Weaver. So the creatures are pretty big, but we still have a chance here with the Titan top deck. And we hit a Battle of Frost and Fire, so that kills all their permanents, but unfortunately the Okiba is actually going to kill us on their upkeep. So opponent did just have a really fast start both games there, so definitely shows the weakness of what this deck has, which is, you know, anything that's like hyper aggressive. Pizza people, are you enjoying the content? Don't forget, subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit that bell icon as well. That way, anytime any of our new content comes out, you're able to see it right away. Hey, leave a comment down below as well. Tell us what you're going to play in the next event, or tell us what you're enjoying about the video. Don't forget, check out the description too. We've got tons of great content down below. And on top of that, we're going to have our tournament schedule too. So get in on it. Hope to see you. Let's see what we can do here with some more bridge. The old Prismatic Bridge going to be on the play. This hand, it's a bit rough. We have some board wipes, but it's a bit slow. I think we'll have to just take the mulligan here. This one's a little bit slow as well, but I think we can keep it. Poke back the Titan of Industry. Get the Zeotoras down. We have the white. We'll eventually have blue mana here. Probably just going to play the Spars Headquarters second anyways. I think we might be up against Vampires or the 4-color deck again here, depending on what our opponent does. No, just looks like another underdog. We have Shipwreck March. Seems pretty good. Let's just play that into the Fable, and then we have a Binding next turn. So we're starting to get some of our game plan developed, some of the battlefield developed, maybe eventually ramping into some cards that we need. So let's see what our opponent does here. And I think we can take that damage. Be a lot better off making the treasure token. We don't even know what their backup play is. I think we'd rather just wait. And they're actually using a card on our token, which I'm actually pretty happy with here. And I think we can get rid of these 2 lands. We draw a Titan. And I think this is okay. If they want to spend their whole turn on Tenacious Underdog, then we can just get a Prismatic Bridge on the battlefield, and that'll be really great for us. Okay, wedding announcement, not really a big deal. Don't really care too much about that card. And yep, we'll go ahead and flip that. We get to go get a forest, which is nice. And then we'll go ahead and slam this bridge. And in a few turns, we'll actually have a Titan as well. If we top deck a land, we'll actually have a Titan out of our hand and a Titan off of the bridge. So double Titan, here we go. They can't get rid of this with the verse, but they could have any other, like a Void Rend, anything like that. But actually it looks like our opponent's going to go the beatdown route here, making that card into a 3/3 if they discard a non-land, or even just trade him with the Reflections, fine. Depending on what they want to sculpt their hand into. Looks like they're just discarding a land. We're not really too worried about that. So we'll go ahead and hit a Titan here. We'll destroy their wedding announcement, make a 4/4. And we draw a tap land. Our creatures gain Death Touch. So let's actually... Might have wanted a full control to be able to kind of give that touch, but that's okay. Let's get rid of this here. Let's cycle, see if we hit anything good. Burn down the house is pretty decent. Let's play that to make sure we can play another Titan next turn. Let's copy a Titan now. Putting a shield counter, making another 4/4. Put a shield counter on the reflection, because either way we're just going to have Titans on Titans. So let's go attack for 7 here. Get our opponent down to 13. And we'll pass it back. Now we just have a super stacked board. We're going to get 2 more Titans next turn, or even wipe the board with this burn down the house. And then just come in with even more Titans. Probably not really like the best play though, considering we're just going to have a bunch of 4/4s and they die to that. But we have a slew of options here in terms of what we can do right now. Opponent does have 3 cards, so they still kind of have some answer to what we've got going on here. But it is going to be hard considering that most of our permanents that do matter, like the bridge is just multicolored. The Titan's kind of just like a bigger card, so they need a hard removal spell for it. And they're just going to attack. I think that they have a meat hook, is what it's looking like. We still make some blocks. We don't really care too much about losing the tokens here. So I think we're just going to block the 2/2 and the Luminarch. Okay, nice. Block here. We still can't kill it. So I'm just going to take the 6. Make some blocks, get rid of some of their cards. They meat hook. They just get rid of my tokens and the reflection, and then still 2 Titans next turn. I mean, they're at 13. Do they have an answer for us? Could also end up running out of Titans as well. Might almost want to bring in that Coma next game. Alright, so we're going to hit another Titan. Get another 4/4. We'll actually gain some life this time. And our opponent's just going to concede. We just have Titans on Titans on Titans. Let's get Coma. The Ray seems pretty good here. I really like Infernal Grasp. And do we want some protection spells? Maybe we bring in a Tamiyo's to be safe. Cut a couple of these. The Celestus seems a lot slower on the draw. The Asusas isn't that great. Do we want the Tamiyo's? Let's cut a couple of these. Or just one. And then we bring in a Tamiyo's. I think I like that. Let's try it like this. I really like just having the one protection spell just in case. I mean, their deck, you know, more likely that they just play a lot of removal. Okay. Hope for a good draw here. A little bit too slow. I think we can take a mulligan. It's awkward, but honestly, a lot of time with this deck, this is like what you're going to be doing. You're just going to have to just wing it a little bit. A lot of your cards are powerful, so if you're able to at least get from the mid to the late game, you have a really good shot. Tenacious Underdog's pretty good. And yeah, we'll just play a blue source. Play this as a white, get the Fable down. We have a binding afterwards, so definitely taking some damage here from the underdog. We also just have a couple turns before things get really scary. So let's get this down. We're really hoping that the Goblin token doesn't die, because it'll ramp us into this Battle of Frost and Fire. It actually looks like they... Yeah, I'm just going to take that. We'll go down to 10. Do they have a Rafine to follow it up with? Would really, really enjoy that. No Rafine, but they hold up their mana. So, a bit interesting here. Let's go ahead and get rid of these. A couple of redraws. I'm actually almost more inclined to play the binding right now. Wow, it actually just went through. They don't have any sort of board wipe, or excuse me, counter spell, so our board wipe might actually resolve. Now we kind of have to keep this back as a blocker. I was really almost playing around a counterspell a little bit too much there. But, you know, they pass a turn with all their mana open, so definitely make the block here. And unfortunately, we do even get to flip our Fable now, so it's kind of a little bit problematic in terms of how things lined up here. So we're going to have to think about this for a moment. We have Kami War to get rid of the underdog. I think I'm just going to try to do this. Yep, just going to try to kill it. Oh, they have an Obscura to bounce it back. So we're going to have to block with this Reflection. I'm actually glad we didn't use the battle, because now they still can't play around this. Yep, going to bounce back the Shatter Skull Smashing. We also have Kami War to get rid of the underdog, just exile it for good. I think we just make the trade here. And then we can exile the Tenacious Underdog potentially. Let's see what else they do here. We're at 6. I mean, we're not looking too good on life. Okay, 3 cards are just going to pass. And we hit a Titan. Yeah, I think we're just going to go for the Kami War here. Do they have a counterspell for us? They're going to cycle Rafine's Tower. Kami War is going to land. We'll get rid of this Tenacious Underdog. We'll play the Shatter Skull Smashing as a land. We do have 3 green for this Titan Industry on the following turn, so that should be able to help us bounce back into this game. And it looks like they have a wedding announcement, but it's not anything that's going to be threatening here. Either way, we get to bounce the token. And then slam our Titan. If we really wanted to, could play the Sister's Call, but we don't have any extra permanents to kind of just sacrifice. Titan Industry. They have an Obscura Interceptor, so it's going to bounce the Titan back. And they get to connive. So, let's see here. Do we want to play the Xander's Lounge? I don't think so. I'm going to take 3 damage here. Right now, we're actually very fortunate that our opponent does not have a creature land in play, and they have another wedding announcement, so opponent's going super wide here. But, let's see, so we have Titan. I think we just do that. We have a 6/6 blocker now as well. So we'll gain the 5, destroy one of their wedding announcements. The one that's going to flip, so that way their creatures don't get bigger. And let's count up our mana. Yeah, I think we do want to play the Xanders because we can Fable plus a 5-drop next turn. Probably the Sisters. Because it can actually sack the Fable to get back. And sack the Fable to get a Fable, so that would get 2 Goblins or maybe even the Binding. Wow, so they actually ended up having a removal spell here. They don't necessarily have a great attack. I guess they're gaining some life is what their thought process is here. But I'm not really too worried about that. And we're actually going to get to do some pretty powerful things here. So let's go get this Spirit Sisters down. They have 1 card left. Could be a counterspell. It is not. Let's play the Fable. And we'll actually, I'm not going to attack with the Titan. We'll pass like this. We'll get back the Kami War, sacrificing the Fable, exiling the wedding announcement. And opponent does have 2 cards left, so, you know, we're at 6. Pretty low life. We have a board wipe if it really gets out of control. We could sack the Kami War, but that seems unlikely. Wow, we actually hit a bridge, which is just phenomenal here. So we actually just have some more Titan action. Opponent does have negate, but you know what? We're pretty far ahead this game. It's not really something we're too worried about. Gonna attack for 2. Opponent's just gonna take it. And do we just want to get back this Fable and Scry? I think so. So let's go ahead, just kill the token. Obviously not really a big deal. We'll get back... Can we actually get back? Well, we can get Asikas if we sack the Titan. Can't get back the bridge side, unfortunately, so... Let's go ahead and get a Fable back by sacking the Spirit Sisters Call. I guess we can get back the Battle Frostfire either way. by sacking the Fable itself later. So let's pass it back, and we're pretty far ahead here, even though we're at 6. Opponent is flashing the good game, so we went ahead and took that down. We were able to do exactly what our deck is supposed to do there with the Bridges and the Titans. Let's go. All right, here for the post game. So yeah, you know, we ended up with a even record with the deck. Kind of ended up playing a lot of different strategies on the ladder. I think that maybe with a little bit more practice, we're able to kind of see some other lines differently. But you can already see in the games that we played the power in the deck, where you're just able to get a bridge out early, get the Titan going, your Kami. You just end up with so much value that you're able to easily overpower your opponent as the game progresses. I think that's in the deck itself, you may want to look for something a little bit earlier. Like the Celestis is good because it ramps, but at the same time, there is a need for some earlier interaction. Consider that you could easily get run over by a creature deck, but once you start to get your big cards going, they kind of don't really have a chance, as their creatures or answers don't necessarily always line up the best of what you're doing. But I definitely suggest this deck for a tournament for sure, and for the ladder as well. With just a little bit, maybe some fine tuning in the main deck or the sideboard. But definitely give it a shot. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, I really appreciate you making this far. Hit that subscribe button, the bell notification. Leave a like as well. Don't forget, we host 3 tournaments a month, all free to play. You can catch another one this coming Sunday on the 14th of August. It's a free-to-play Explore event. It's our PizzaBox Open, $240 cash prizes, 2 top 8 distributed. So definitely get in on that. You can find all the information for those events, my content down below in the description, and I hope that you stay cheesy.